dream start.
Welcome to another episode. My name is Dean Vassy. You can find me on X at hashtag Kangas, Instagram hashtag Kangaroos Podcast. Tonight, for my trade deadline show, I am joined by the lovely Siobhan Rowe. Siobhan, it looks like this is going to be a fizzler. Nothing is going to happen. There's a lot of rumours going out around during the day that might be a straight swap for Jordan McGoey. There was picks involved, but the big move of Will Phillips never happened, Siobhan.
Well, it seems like it's one of those buying some fireworks from Amazon. You're hopeful they'll go off, and you light the fireworks scene, and one small sparkler goes up in the air. It feels bit deflating at the moment for us at the moment. I think it'll actually be a very exciting end to the trade period with the Merritt deal, the Curnow deal, a few other sort of key pieces going through, and it always seems to be a scramble, even though they've got the full week for the last half an hour. So I'm sure we'll see some other movement, but by the looks of it, Brady Rawlings has packed up his belongings, and that's our trade period done. And I'm sure we'll unpack it, and there's plenty to talk about, even though not a lot happened for us. Obviously, I'm thrilled with the inclusion of Charlie Spargo. I actually think that he will be an important piece of the puzzle going forward. Maybe not the whole jigsaw, but a little cog there. And I think he has the ability to play a Jacob Constanti role to a higher standard. So looking forward to seeing what he brings. But there's a lot to unpack with Jai Simpkin, and you and I differ a little bit on our opinions on this one, but I think it's a nice big smack in the face for Jai, especially at the conclusion of today. And I don't think that it's tenable for him to be captain of our football club next year. And clearly we put a very high price, and I was thrilled to see that we didn't fold and trade him for cheap with the Pies, and some of their sort of offers weren't great, were they? With initially a first round future first, and then they came back with a second round option. We don't know whether De Goey was involved in any of those discussions, but clearly we stood firm. But at the end of the day, if personally, I think Jai may have overestimated his standing in the game, and us as North Melbourne have looked after him with a big salary and a big contract that he was willing and happy to sign not too long ago. And just because he's thrown the toys out of the cot for not being able to play in the midfield, where I don't even think there's room for him, Dean. We know, he's got some great qualities, but he's disposal and kicking is not one of them. And there are players that are young and also players that are better that have surpassed him in that area of the ground. And for him to kind of just say, I want to look elsewhere, and as captain of the club, it's not good enough. Maybe he can sit back now and realize that he's on a pretty good wicket with us, but maybe that will no longer continue, especially in the captaincy capacity at the club. So maybe just a little bit of overinflated standing on him as a player and also in the game. But he remains at Arden Street, and I'm glad we didn't bend in that way. But we also lost a player today, Deanie, in Finbar Maley, which was a real shock because I don't think his name was ever mentioned until the last sort of 2 hours. And I think that one was an interesting trade. I love your thoughts on this as well, but ultimately he goes for late picks that may not end up being used, and we don't know whether or not he was potentially going to be delisted because he was one of 5 players without a contract in front of him. But I am quite disappointed because he showed a lot of potential, great hands, good aerial ability, still was working on his kicking, but a project key position player that I thought we would have persisted with. So overall, a good positive in Charlie Spargo, but I don't know, Dean, where we're going as a football club. We haven't even touched on Brady Rawlings' comments around the defense, but a little surprised with the two sort of deals, that one that didn't go through and one that did go through today.
Well, I might as well talk about the offer that was put to for Jai Simpkin. Now, you mentioned that it was a first and a future. It might have been it was a future first, which was 2027, as far as we know, where Tasmania's come into the competition. So it would have been a very late first round pick, no matter how bad Collingwood were. And I'm not too sure. I think it was a future second, so a future second rounder next year, which would have been a pick in the 30s, because Collingwood, I expect, still to be a top 6 to top 8 team. I think they'll slide a little bit. They're getting older. But, yeah, I mean, is that a fair value? I mean, I don't know how much they never mentioned how much the contract he was going to pay. how much Collingwood were going to pay of Jai Simpkins' contract, I should say, which was close to $1 million or around the $1 million mark per year for the next 4 years, which is overs for a player of his qualities. There's no doubt about that. We paid that a couple of years ago, and he's not an A-grade talent. That's for certain. He's been good at this club, but we've been a very poor team for a long time. And he has been captain of this football club for the last couple of years, sole captain this year, and that's come up for a lot of debate. Would you? I mean, with this offer, I didn't want draft picks. Like the draft picks are pointless. And would you have looked at players instead rather than always like every trade that seems to come up? It's always about draft picks. Well, I mean, we don't need any more draft picks. We've got this young list coming through. It was only 12 months ago. Brady Rawlings said, or Will Thursfield said, we got Matt Whitlock. That's why we traded future first. We want these guys together. We don't worry about the draft. And now all of a sudden this year we're saying, we want first round draft picks again. I'm a bit confused as to the offer. Maybe look at players. Maybe if they wanted to go, maybe they should have gone earlier for him or something like that. What do you think of of Brady Rawlings and his offer? Not a fair valuation. He wanted 2 first. It wouldn't have been 2 great firsts anyway. Even if it was next year's first, it probably still would have been a pick in the 15s or something. Or maybe, best case scenario, 12 or 13. What do you think of his valuation of Jai Simpkin, to sum it up?
I think the club didn't expect Jai to request a trade in the first place, Dean. And I think they drove a high bargain for him, knowing that a club probably wasn't going to be meeting the expectations that they set for this particular price for Jai. That's my summation of it. I could be wrong, but something tells me that I think they knew that they weren't going to get that particular price, and so he was going to stay. And his comments were interesting that they, value him as a person and a player and a leader, etc. And I get that to a certain extent, but I also, like I mentioned earlier, I'm disappointed that the captain of the football club has decided that he wants a trade away because he's been forced to play partially on the wing. There's an element of me that doesn't sit right, because the captain of your football club, and I think it speaks competition wide, and not to get too heavy on all of this, but you had Jack Steele, who's left St Kilda and moved to Melbourne, Oscar Allen, who's gone to Brisbane, Zach Merritt, who wants out of Essendon. And if you look at those clubs, it just seems to me that the AFL brought in free agency as a way to equalise the competition, but it's actually done the complete opposite of that. And we're looking at bigger clubs that consistently sort of, how do I put it? Rape and pillage the clubs that struggle at the bottom of the ladder, and that's even infiltrating club captains. And also the idea of signing a big deal now and taking that money and committing, contracts mean nothing. And we can see that even with Turno, who signed that long-term deal with the Blues, that as soon as things get hard, players now want to leave, and they want to leave to clubs that are on the precipice of success. And with Tasmania coming in, and also looking at the draft, it's not a very deep draft, very midfield heavy again. And I think as a football club, we're probably moving past that. We hope anyway, considering all we've been through in the last sort of however long, Dean. So it's difficult. But I also understand why they wanted to keep Jai, and maybe also to prove a point as well. And that's why they were driving the high bargain that they did. But I agree with some of the comments that are coming through. I don't think he can be captain. And I also think that the players may look at him a little bit differently. I mean, Larky's commentary around, him, he was very surprised that I don't know. It's interesting. He's a North Melbourne player and a person still, and he'll remain that way for the foreseeable future. But I think Rawlings was never going to bend on this deal in the way that he presented it, because we know that his value as a player is that he is captain of the football club. But I think externally, his value wasn't as high as what we had internally. And that's why I think for him, it might have been a bit of a shock that he went on the open market and no one was really willing to take that contract on or necessarily give up those high picks for him. I think it also says about our football club, and I don't like talking about this because it's upsetting as a North fan, and you probably will agree, but we're not a destination club, Dean.
No,
And I think that we're not able to attract good free agents, good players that are wanting to move clubs. We're not there yet. That's why we're attracting players, no offense, like Charlie Spargo, that are on the precipice of their own football clubs, because we're not quite there yet. And that's why I think we didn't necessarily gain, but we didn't lose a lot either, which is, I guess you could call it a null or draw for the trade period. But in terms of Jai in that manner as well, even the players that we have at our football club, we're never going to be trading someone like Harry Sheaves, who has really high value. But when you look at someone like Jai, the value externally isn't as much of it as what we value internally, because we're not quite that destination club yet either. That probably speaks to that a little bit too. That our players are more value to us because they're internal sort of bred players, and externally they're just not as highly regarded as what else is available on the market. That's no disrespect to Jai, but I think maybe his management or himself putting himself on the market, maybe didn't realize how good they had it at North Melbourne, and now we'll see how that affects the group internally and Jai himself.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, time heals everything. Like over the preseason, I think things will be fine, and he'll get back to playing football. It seems to just be a case of emotions are probably high today, but time emotions will settle down come first day of pre-season, and he'll be at this stage he's going to be a winger for the foreseeable future, at least the next 12 months, until maybe next year you may reevaluate. Look, I'm going to look at it from his point of view. Maybe he's look, I think we've all been at a job before where we've felt like we deserve more. Whether it's more money or better conditions, or go into a better role or something like that internally, and you get overlooked. And maybe he's just a bit frustrated. Like he felt like, I've done the hard yards. I've been captain, and I've been copping the brunt of the criticism. He's faced media when we've lost games by 10, 15, even sometimes 20 goals. And, he's been the face of the club for the last couple of years. And maybe he just thought, and I think he's the longest serving player without a finals win. And maybe he just thought, I deserve better, and, I deserve to play finals. I want to go to a club that values me. Unfortunately, we just didn't get the market. He didn't get the market he deserves. And hopefully that's, a little bit of a slap in the face for his ego that, all right, I've got to work hard. And if a club does want me on my contract, I've got to be, an elite player. And, he certainly showed signs the last few weeks that he can play that wing role and play it quite well. And, so hopefully, he does pull his head in a little bit. He's been a bit flaky the last few months, Siobhan. He's in Europe at the moment with his new girlfriend, who's only been with for a few months. So whereas generally in previous years, he's gone away with his mates overseas and so forth. So he's been a bit flaky, been a bit distant from the club. So he needs to, work on himself a little bit, I feel like here. So we'll, have to wait and see, I suppose, how he's going to adjust.
For you, do you think the club will fold and give him more midfield minutes next year and take him away from the wing, considering he's remaining at the club? Or do you think they hold in the idea that he plays on the wing?
It depends. I don't think round one, round one, he's, I think he's going to be on a wing. But if we get injuries, he can go in the midfield. And he's not a bad player to get in there. But I think we've made our mind that Harry Sheares is going to be in the midfield, and so he should be. George Wardlaw, if he's fit, he needs a big preseason and a preseason away from concussions and and so forth. You got LDU, who's going to play midfield. He doesn't play anywhere else. Luke Parker's probably still going to have spells in there next year. I don't know where Tom Powell is at the moment, whether he goes in there. There might be one or two others that can go in there, but he's going to be on the outside looking in. And if his form is really good on the wing, and we do get a couple of injuries or suspensions, which we do anyway, Even when we do normal tackles, players get suspended. So, yeah, he might have to get that opportunity in midfield and bide his time and, take a little bit of an ego hit. But not too sure. Look, that's up to the club to decide. And, they're mature enough and, they'll work this out. But,
Yep.
it's going to be interesting to see how he adapts, and things will get forgotten. And sometimes it's about the moves you don't do. Like we didn't trade Tristan Cherry only a couple of years ago,
Yes.
Siobhan as well for, I think it was a second rounder or a third rounder. It might have
For
been
the
a third
Saints.
rounder.
Yes.
So it might be sometimes the moves Brady Rawlings does that gives us a little bit of hope because, every time he does a move, I've never been a big fan of it, not in recent years anyway, Siobhan. So maybe this might be a blessing that he didn't pull the trigger here and just cave in and stood firm for a change, because he has had a reputation of just giving in to other clubs, with trades like Jason
Absolutely.
Francis.
He is to be commended on the fact that he didn't fall to this. I think I completely understand what you're saying, Dean, and appreciate you looking at maybe from the other side. I think from my point of view, what has got us through this really shitty period, and I think that's the best way that you can describe it. It really is. It's been a really awful time to be a North Melbourne supporter, but it's the fact that players have committed to the football club and on the train upwards. So you've had Larky, Zerha, Davies Uniacke, these guys really buy in. And that's what I think has kept us all sane as well. That the main core of players and group have all just stuck together and decided they want to push through this. So to have the captain sort of then go, no, I can't do it anymore. That's basically how I view what's happened. Is a little bit of a kick in the guts. That's kind of how I viewed it. But at the same time, I think the club were never going to let him go. And that's the one positive that Brady Rawlings can take from this. And there certainly hasn't been a lot that he's done right, but not just letting him go for cheap for the sake that he wanted to go, which ties into the bigger picture as well. That so many players in the competition just expect to be traded and get out of their contracts because they're at a struggling club. Well, no, we've gone. You stick fat. You sign the deal. You stay with us. So that is a positive that's come out of all of this.
No, and that's right. I'm just reading a few reports here. So it looks like Merritt staying at Essendon.
Wow.
That's the latest I'm hearing. Not too sure what's going on with Curnow. Apparently, the manager of Zach Merritt is not very happy with what's transpired there. James has come into the trap. He said earlier, love the show. Been following you both for a while now. First time tuning into live. Thank you very much, James. Jai can't be captain, surely. I think you'd have to think that he's lost respect of his peers a little bit. And look, I'm still not a big fan of the players voting for the captaincy, but I don't think. He'll certainly be captain next year. I don't think he'd want it anyway, to be honest with you. I think he just wants to focus on his football and getting that right. He also mentions waiting for inflatable cactus to jump on. Let's hope this doesn't affect our team internally. I don't think it will. Time will heal that, and maybe taking the captaincy will help improve his performance. Yeah, I mean, there's a few comments here, James, and we're certainly hoping so. I mean, what do you make of the Collingwood commentary from their supporters? The uneducated supporters, I might say, sort of saying, no, we don't want Jai Simpkin, he's shit and all that sort of thing. He's been at a shit club. That's why he's so good. We never said he was great, but I think he's an upgrade on anything they've got in the midfield. I mean, Pendlebury's, on a walker, pretty much. There's a couple others that, obviously, besides Nick Dacos, who's their second best midfielder? Jordan McGoey's gets injured a lot now.
And it was interesting that his name got flown around, Dean, because I thought maybe we'd bite at that when I heard that, because I know obviously in the past in his prime we've been looking at him and potentially wanted him to come across, but there has to be a reason why Collingwood was so happy to kind of put him up on the trade table as well. So that was a little bit of a red flag to me. But yeah, look, I think the Pies do have an aging list, and Simpkin did appeal to them because they want to improve their midfield. And you're right, other than the two Dacos boys, and I guess Long, who kind of goes through there, and
look, he's been handy, but I think Simpkin's a better player than Ned Long.
Absolutely, they don't have a lot of young midfielders that can support the two Dacoses in there. So, obviously Mitchell's on his way out. Same with Sidebottom and Pendlebury. They're not exactly youthful, are they? So that's probably why he was more suited to the Pies than any other club, and would have been an upgrade on what they had. But I do think our asking price, this is coming from, obviously from our best interest, was quite significant, 2 first-round picks. I mean, we just saw Christian Petrarca go to the Gold Coast for 3 first-round picks with a little bit coming back. But Simpkins, no Christian Petrarca, unfortunately. Dean.
Yeah, no, that's unfortunately, he's not. Well, we might as well move. Ahead, and we'll go to one deal that did happen today. Finbar Maley. Now, it was effectively just giving him away. I think there was a trade of picks today, which was from 64 to 57. I think we go up 7 spots, and a future 4th rounder, which probably won't get used next year, which will be a pick in the 70s. Generally, it doesn't go that late in the draft because teams want to wait to the rookie draft to fill up their list spots. Yeah, I mean, I guess there was no contract there for him. Brady Rawlings said just before that, look, he has to do what's in the best interest of him because he didn't have a contract offer in front of him from us, and Adelaide were prepared to offer him one. So I think it's a deal in good faith because it looked like he probably would have been delisted, Siobhan.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, Dean. We'll get to the key position argument with us in a little while, but another developing key position talent that I really did think that Finbar had quite a bright future at North Melbourne. Yes, his kicking let him down at times, but he had a great pair of hands, quite an aerial, athletic key sort of player that I actually think, alongside, don't forget about the second coming of Christ in Cooper Trembath. I think he'll be quite an important player to play alongside Lucky next year. But I thought Maley was that kind of third tall that could have developed nicely alongside Larky and Trembath, with Darling another year older, and kind of I expect him not to play as many games as he did this year next year. So I was a little bit surprised to see no contract offer up for him, but at the same time, you can't begrudge a player if they've got to this point in the year with no contract in front of them, and that's the same for Phillips, for Harvey, for Payne, and the others that are still out of contract. To look elsewhere. And effectively, if he was going to be delisted, then, we got something for him to go to the Crows. But I think it was a little bit of a silly decision to not offer him a contract in the first place. And I wouldn't be surprised if he went to Adelaide and actually played a really important role there. They've obviously still got Thilthorpe, who's a star of the game, and Fogarty and Walker, and quite a number of players there. So I don't expect him to be a best 22 player at the Crows, but very handy footballer that I really thought, with another year under his belt in our system, could have been anything. So very surprised to see no contract, but good luck to him, and all the best. But I feel like this is one that we're going to rue in going forward. I don't know if you feel the same, but I know Mark really liked Finbar, and when he got into the side was really happy. And I think we all had, high hopes for him, but not to be.
I would have kept him for another year at least. I mean, you put that much development into a player. He's played 7 games this year, and he showed signs. He took some really good contested marks. His kicking is a bit of an issue, but with a lot of work, that could improve. So, if key position players, they don't grow on trees. So, absolutely. I would have definitely kept him for another year instead of prioritising getting 100 undersized small forwards, because at the moment, look, the list is imbalanced again. I feel like, Siobhan. Yeah, I know you mentioned Cooper Trembath, but you've got Trembath, Larky, Darling. I mean, I don't expect Darling to play a full year next year. He's 30. He's going to be 34. So I expect him to get phased out a little bit. And I thought Finbar Maley would have been a good option because I don't know CCJ. Obviously, they made a decision. It was either him or CCJ who was going to get a contract extension, and they chose CCJ.
It's a very big punt with his injury.
With his injuries,
there as well. It's a very big punt.
So they've gone down that path. So good luck to him. He seems like a high character kid, and it was very well loved at the club. So hopefully, look, you'll add a little bit of depth to Adelaide. I can't see him getting a game if they're fully healthy with those 3 tall forwards, but you never know. He could play, as a backup ruckman, and if they get a couple of injuries, he could certainly come into the frame. So, we'll have to wait and see. So that leaves us with 4 players uncontracted. Now, one player I'm going to talk to you about, and I'm a little bit surprised that no club would have offered him, 1 year, a 4th rounder, and that's Will Phillips. Now, he's shown signs that he's got potential as a defensive midfielder. And someone like Melbourne, instead of getting Jack Steele, who's 30 years old, and on a big contract, you could have given Will Phillips a chance because they have to redesign their midfield, and he could be a good run with player for the next 12 to 24 months. I'm a little bit surprised no clubs went for him, and he's left in limbo now. Do you think he stays at the club now, Siobhan?
I do, Dean. I do. I think it's funny that not a single word was uttered about Will Phillips throughout the whole trade period. I think the fact that he hasn't been traded would suggest that he will stay at North or potentially on a 1 year deal. But I truly think that his time at North will now be as a reserve backup player. I don't see him being a key cog in our plans going forward. I'd be very surprised if they didn't offer him a deal now that no club has come to buy it. I think he'll be a reserve player. It's just really unfortunate because obviously he was a pick 3 and we can go into that if we want to, but no point rehashing the past. But as a footballer, it's just difficult just to find his point of difference. That's where the stick in the mud's always been with me with Will Phillips. What's his standout attribute? He's kind of average at everything. So he's kind of just this package of a solid player that hasn't quite got there yet. And I don't know whether he's going to. I think he'll remain on the list, but I don't get excited with his name on the board as I would with a George Wardlaw and these guys that have a standout quality attribute. But I am surprised no club even gave him a second thought, even someone like West Coast who were really struggling for midfielders. That was an interesting one for mine, and his name was never raised, so we'll see what ends up happening with him.
Unless they're just going to take him in the pre-season draft, they sort of said, look, no point doing an offer. We just want to check a few things with players, and we might just say, oh, we're going to get rid of him anyway, and they might take him to pre-season draft because I won't pick one. So, but it'd be an upgrade on all of their midfielders because their midfield's really ordinary. It's the worst in the competition, West Coast. So, yeah, it's a little bit surprising with that one. But what about Cooper Harvey, Geordie Payne, and do we have to talk about Darcy Tucker? Surely he's not getting another year.
No, I think Darcy Tucker's time's probably up, Dean. But Geordie Payne and Harvey are an interesting one. It really feels like we've got a significant amount of small forwards that aren't goal kicking small forwards that are more that defensive sort of.
We just got another one.
So if you look at that list of players, that glut now, we've got Harvey, Payne, both out of contract. Constanti, who else is there?
Curtis, you got Zach Bench as well. Came in.
Yep, he's got that 1 year deal. There's quite a lot. There's quite a lot there. Yep. So I don't think that we can have a list full of sort of average small forwards. So you'd have to say that I'd probably go Harvey if one of them was to get a deal out of the two of them. But it makes for...
He's got to get a contract, that bloke.
Yeah, he's more the goal kicking side of things is actually, significantly improved compared to some of the others that we've got. So I'd say Harvey for a 1 year deal with Geordie Payne missing out, unfortunately. Sorry, Dean.
Look, I think he's done, Payne, only because we've got too many of the same player. Those half forwards, forward 50 players. Still got Braden George to come back in. You'd have to think next year. They obviously want to give him every opportunity coming up to a contract year. Hopefully he can stay fit for a change. If he doesn't stay fit, then that's probably it for him. If he gets another major injury, then you'd have to think that's it for him. Unfortunately, because there was a player there that with a lot of talent. But with Geordie Payne, you probably don't need him unless you got injuries, which we kind of did have in that forward 50 towards the end of the year, and they wanted to see if they got something there. And he shows a little bit, but I mean, I don't. I wouldn't begrudge the club for letting him go. I know I was high on him there for a period of time, but you got Zane Duursma. You're going to keep him for another year.
Yeah, he's an interesting one to discuss, isn't he, Dean?
Yeah, we'll certainly talk about him in a minute. but we've also got the new full forward in Aiden Core that will play down there next year. So, goal
And
kicking
our
forward.
amazing glut of key forwards and key defenders that we didn't need to improve on at all, did we?
No, we will talk about that in a second. Well, we might as well go to Zane Duursma. Now, that was quashed quite early. Obviously, our asking price would have been quite high for him, and that's fair enough. He's a young talent. There was a high draft pick, and if a club wants a player, then they have to pay overs. We had to do it last year with Caleb Daniel and so forth. So that only makes sense. And he's out of contract next year, so in 12 months' time when he's out of contract, I think Essendon will make a play for him again. But should we maybe have looked at something a little bit closer to him? Because he's obviously going to need a big preseason. And we've got a lot of those forwards. Paul Curtis, he's not better than him. I don't think he'll ever be better than him. Cameron Zurhaar's on a big contract. He's never going to be better than him. You're going to probably have Harry Sheasel going through there. You're going to have a small forward, Charlie Spargo, Costanti, defensive players. You've got Darling, Trembath, Larkey, and maybe Luke Parker might spend a bit more time there. It's going to be hard to see him get plenty of opportunities up forward, and he hasn't shown enough up the field as well, whether he's played on a wing or half back. He doesn't get enough of the ball, Siobhan. I think he's averaging like 7 possessions per game in his career, which is just far too low for a player of his quality. So should we maybe have looked at something a little bit closer with him? Could we have fleeced Essendon for a couple of high draft picks?
Can I ask you why, in your opinion, they decided they wanted to not even remotely entertain it? Is it a moral sort of stance, or do you think it's because they really rate him as a player?
If he was a second round draft pick, if he was a pick in 20, I think he would have left. They would have been happy to let him go. But because he's a high draft pick, and it's funny, like the minute you pay for someone that's a top 5 pick, you don't want to let him go. You want to give him every opportunity, like a Will Phillips as well.
Yep.
Even though it's probably not going to happen for these players because they're not in the right environment or they don't get the right opportunities, that you just want to give them every opportunity you can, even though it's probably not going to work. But, that's what I think. Look, there's a talented player there, but I don't think it's the right place for him to be in because we've got a number of those types of players at half forward pockets. So I'm not too sure. Look, another year of development, and we may find something there, but it's going to be hard, Siobhan. What about yourself? Where do you rate him right now?
I don't.
Yeah.
I know that's and I don't want to come on here and be negative about the list and our players that we've got there, and especially on a kid that hasn't necessarily shown all his worth. But this is my stance, and just very quickly, Dean, Charlie Curnow has ended up at the Sydney Swans, so we don't have to worry about him on Good Friday. So I'm doing cartwheels right now. If you, I know you see me, but I'm doing some cartwheels. And this is my stance on that. And funny enough, before I logged on to come on the pod tonight, I actually had an argument with my dad around players that don't want to be at your football club. I don't want at my football club, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And he was of the opinion as a Carlton man that Carlton, no matter what, should keep Curnow. And I said, why do you want somebody that doesn't want to be there? And the rumblings around Duursma and Essendon have been there for a while. And I just think we took you as a top 5 draft pick. You haven't produced anything on the football field, and we're still paying you and showing faith in you. If you want to go. That was my take on Duursma. Now I understand that, that might not be everyone's view, but I'm of the opinion that his value is only going to decrease unless he can start performing on the park. And right now, I don't have the faith that he can do that at the moment. And we have too many of that sort of player. If he was a key forward or a key back, I'd be saying would be silly to consider getting rid of him. But what is he? Unless we can define his role and get him to play that and showcase his skill, I get a little bit nervous about what his output is going to look like. And if you're not fully invested in the football club, you've seen how disastrous that can be. And if his mind is somewhere else, now was the time, while his price was high, to look at getting him across the Bombers, who you're right, we could have potentially fleeced because They've obviously been preoccupied with Merritt, who no deal's been done for, so he remains a Bomber. And yeah, so I just think that there was a window of opportunity there, but I hope he proves me wrong, and I hope he turns out to be one of our better players for years to come. But I'm just not sold at the moment, Dean, and was a little surprised the club was so quick to shut everything down with him.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I was a little bit surprised. I think Essendon, they might have said, "Oh, this is what we value him." And Essendon would have said, "Oh, don't worry about it," straight away. They didn't even look like they were ones to enter discussions. There's been a few players that haven't been traded. Zach Merritt has not been traded. Callum Archie has not been traded to Adelaide. Ryan Marshall has not been traded to Geelong. And Buku Kamis has not been traded to Carlton, which is fair enough because I feel like the players have had too much power over the years. Siobhan, and Lockie, I think you mentioned earlier, the contract isn't worth the paper that it's written on. So it gives it, unless you're going to unless the team's going to pay overs for a contracted player, then they're not going anywhere. So that's fair enough. They should be held to accountability that you've signed a contract, you're getting big money.
Yep, and I mean the Blues get well compensated for Curnow. You've got Carlton get
3 first-rounders.
Yeah, 3 first-rounders. So I do think nowadays, if a player wants out and they're contracted, the club should be handsomely sort of compensated for it. And if not, they should hold firm because that's kind of the landscape at the moment. If you're lowly on the ladder, especially with Tassie coming in, I think now it's just easy fodder for the bigger clubs to take. And that's why I'm proud that we didn't budge on Simpkin necessarily.
No, that's right. We're Charlie Curnow, 3 first.
Pretty crazy stuff, isn't it? Wow, for a player.
And Will Hayward is not a bad player.
No.
I don't know if he fits Carlton's needs though. They've got a lot of those mid-sized forwards. But not a bad move for Carlton either. So
and Rowan Marshall never ended up as a cad either. He remained
which is fair enough. I mean, you don't want to make them stronger. Their offer was shit too. It was a first rounder and a future and a second rounder. He's a better player than that. Jeez. I'm not so sure the other ones. Buku Kamis, Callum Archie. I don't think it was a great offer for Callum Archie from what I've just read. And Buku Kamis I'm not too sure what offer was there. But he's still got another year left in his contract. So
true. And as much as I dislike the Bombers, Dean, I actually respect the fact that they were going to hold firm and not let another club that, are in the premiership window and they're not quite there take from them. So I guess respect to them too.
But his value's going to be a lot worse next year. And this is my opinion. I think Brad Scott said, no, do not trade him because he's coaching for his job next year.
100%.
And if they start poor, look, he's going to lose his job and they don't have Zach Merritt. He doesn't care about draft picks right now because at the end of the day, their supporters are frustrated. They lost their last 13 games or something like that. I know there's a lot of injuries, but he's coaching for his job and he knows that. And losing Zach Merritt will make you a worse team, and that's what he's thinking. Whereas if you got a new coach, and he should be sacked, to be honest with you. Look, I'm happy he's still there because he's going to sink that club like he did with us. But I mean, if they had a new coach that come in, they probably would have traded him. I think
it's true. Fair enough. Just very quickly, Dean, Brady Rawlings actually said that it is probably going to look unlikely that Simpkin remains captain. So that's from Rawlings himself.
Oh, schnozzer.
Yeah, quite a bold statement.
He's not holding back anymore, Brady. He's gone all out. So, look, we'll see. It's not up to him to decide either. So apparently you leave the power with the players. They might say, no, we'll just vote him in. So maybe as a joke as the players, they should just put someone that's like a Matt Whitlock or something. Just vote him in. So that's what I'll do. I'll just vote someone like that, someone random. Now Leclerc. Now obviously didn't get to St Kilda. That was a bit bizarre. That obviously they've realised we're paying overs for this guy as far as salary goes, 900,000. They've already got Jack Silvani in, got Callum Wilkie. So the key defence was sorted and probably realised, no, we don't want to pay this. So they've just rejected any offer that GWS were going to throw at him. And we didn't want to go after him. Is he the type of player that we should have maybe looked seriously at? Because Brady Rawlings, I'm not so sure about his logic in this, saying, it sort of all happened pretty late. So, yeah, I mean, you still had 5 or 6 days. It's not like, for the 356 days of the year that you don't do trade period, that you could have got this done pretty quickly if you had to move. And he just sort of said, no, it was just too quick. I don't buy that logic. But should we have looked at him a lot stronger, I should say?
You're going to wind me up like one of those toys at Christmas that waddle around at the moment.
Yeah.
For me, this is a really touchy subject, but the most disappointing thing I've heard for a long time from the football club, and I'm not easily upset with the club, was Brady Rawlings' comments around not being in the hunt for a key defender and being sort of content with the players that we had. If that is the way that the whole entire club is thinking, and this is just me and I'm one fan of many, but I honestly think that's a very delusional comment. And I'm concerned if that's their thinking that we are fine in that area of the ground, then they have not been watching the same games of football that I have for the past 5 years. And the fact that we didn't want to improve in that space really worried me. I was look, for St Kilda to pull out the way they did, and for all 17 other clubs to not have an interest in Leclerc suggests to me that maybe there's something that we're missing. So I'm not necessarily saying the club is stupid and haven't done their due diligence. It's possible that they have, and it just didn't work out for whatever reason. But immediately when I heard that Stephen May was on the market, my mind went, okay, this is North's chance to go after somebody like that. He's a very polarizing player in terms of his off-field and on-field attitude, and he's sort of it can be interpreted as arrogance, sort of pointing, but in my personal opinion, with somebody like that, I really feel like he would have been a general for us that would have given a bit of direction and a bit of nastiness, because I'm sick of watching players get scored against, and you've got, not to name names, but guys like Griffin Logue that are patting people on the back when they're put in a half-assed effort. Like, there has to be something that improves with our whole team defense and our back six next year, or we're not going anywhere as a football club. That's my very strong opinion on that. And then you look at a guy like Buku Khamis, and potentially, yes, there was a high asking price, but I think he would have improved our back half for sure. Yes, he's not exactly a gay grade footballer, but would have been an improvement and a backup for what we had. So surprised there was no conversation around Stephen May, and surprised a little conversation around Buku Khamis. And then I guess we could even discuss Ugle-Hagan and another key position player there, whether the club wanted to take a risk. Obviously, we had interest in Connor Butterick, who's not a key position player, but was another defender who we were strongly invested in, who decided to go to the Western Bulldogs. Not much you can do about that, but when it comes to the defensive sort of options that we had, even Jordan Butts, who stayed at Adelaide, but surprised that we didn't pursue that one further either, because I think we could have pried him out of there.
Yeah. You're very high on Stephen May. Yeah, I mean, he's 34. I could understand that in that regard, because he's aging a bit, and you don't know, the cliff could come very quickly. It's a bit strange that Melbourne were very happy to try and let him go, and then no one was really interested in him at all. So obviously,
I completely understand that. I'm not privy to
for a short-term solution, I get it.
That, but they've gone down the path of getting Darling, Parker, and Daniel, right, to help out. Personally, Daniel was not exactly screaming general to me in the back half, considering the year he had as well. You get someone down there that sets standards. I think the back line is clearly the worst line that we have at the football club. And if the club don't see that, then I'm a little worried about what they are seeing. And overall next year, and I mean, this is a different conversation for another time, Dean, and I don't know if you agree with me, but unless we can improve team defense and the way our back six function, we will stay in the same position that we're in. Because you can win as much ball as you want out of the middle, but when you get scored against as heavily as we were for majority of this year, it's a real worry.
Yeah, well, 17th on the ladder in defence this year, conceding 102 points per game. It's not just the back seven. We're not singling them out, but it doesn't help. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I looked at Leek Lear's career statistics. Only averaged like 5.6 intercepts per game. Um, yeah, no, it doesn't get the meanest gain. 4.61 percenters per game. So I mean, his intercepts and 1%ers are worse than Aiden Core through his career. But there's plenty of upside there. There's plenty of athleticism. We were 18th in the competition for intercepts. So meters gained in the competition. So generally, when we do get it in the back line, we just chip it sideways to each other. So I think we're 7th on the ladder for rebound 50s and 18th for inside 50s. So there's a big disconnect between rebound and the ball. So we do need run and carry players. So that's probably why you mentioned Connor Buderick. He would have helped us a little bit there. So there is a need to improve that defensive 7. We're hoping that Riley Hardiman can take another step. We're hoping that Josh Goda can come in because there's potential there for a player of his quality. He reminds me a lot of Josh Waddell, a poor man's Josh Waddell from Hawthorn, because he does have that run and carry. I mean, you were there in his first game, I think, the Jason Francis Swan song, where he played, I think it was round 23. He really looked really good. He looked really good. Certainly hoping we get internal improvement from there. And Colin McKercher certainly had a good second half of the year in the back half. But as far as key defensive stocks, we've got Comben, hopefully Will Dawson.
Yeah, I was going to say, I hope they play Dawson the whole year.
Yeah, I hope too. I hope so too.
They stick with him and give him every opportunity. And I'd even try Whitlock. I know he needs some more time and development and all of those things, but when appropriate, we'll map Whitlock out into the back half as well, if that's where they see him playing, which I think they do.
Well, I think the last 6 weeks he played in the forward line of the VFL, and they did play a game of the seniors in the forward line as well. So, look, I mean, they've still got Toby Pink, who's he's a role player. He's not the type of player that's going to be there in 3 years' time when you're sort of challenging for top 6, top 8. He's going to be a pillar of your defence. He can hold a spot up there for a little bit. Look, and that's the thing. Like, I don't mind not getting a Leek Lear and a Stephen May if we can, see what Will Dawson's got. Yep. I certainly would love to see him and Comben together. They're good intercept players, and it's something we need to work on. Still got a lot of work to go with his one-on-one work, but I mean, he's a work in progress.
Look,
and he did a really good.
That night was amazing, Dean. That really.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. Yeah, the Darcy game. Yeah. I thought he showed a lot there. But they've got to stop mucking around with him and chuck him forward for 3 weeks, and then we'll put him in the back line this week for 2 weeks, and then chuck him forward again. I just put him in the back line, let him develop there. We don't need any more forwards now. We've got Trembath, Nick Larkey, Zerha, Darling. So we've got enough tools there. There were a few questions. So which type of players should we be targeting on draft night, given the late picks we have? Any ones that can hit a target, that'll be good. We could be getting ahead to gather points for future father-sons. I know that the rules changes for that next year. So if we do get a McCartney, who's supposed to be a top pick, or one of them, you have to have that first rounder. So, which we've got for next year. But I'm not too sure if Sam Harris is going to get in that first round. I don't think he is at this stage. So, I don't think we have to get another first rounder, so that'll be good. Desi came in the chat, so they've said, hi, what is this talk about cricket? I don't know if they're taking a piss there, Siobhan, but clearly we're not talking about cricket or, Australia's Ashes test coming up. So what would you give? We might as well talk about Charlie Spargo. Now, you're probably a little bit higher on him than I am. Now, I looked at comparison compared his stats this year to Jacob Costanti. They're very similar. Jacob Costanti averaged more goals per game, Siobhan. Charlie Spargo only kicked the 1 goal. So what appeals to you about a player like this? I was high on him a couple of years ago, but there's been a lot of injuries since then, and he hasn't been able to get on the park. I certainly would not have given him a 3-year deal. That seems excessive for a player.
It's the Brady Rawlings special, isn't it, Dean, unfortunately?
Yeah, well, he said he's got good pace. I've never seen that's like saying Aiden Core's got good pace. They're probably the same pace there, So I don't know where he's getting that. Like he's obviously talking him up because he recruited him, but you don't have to lie to us. We've all seen Charlie Spargo play. He's not quick. He's got football smarts and he's got a defensive side. But what appeals to you about him? You seem a little higher on him than probably most people.
Look, I think what I had to get my head around is that as North Melbourne, we pay a tax, and that tax is that we have to offer players more money, longer term deals for players that are, no offense to Charlie Spargo, again, average footballers in the competition, because we are where we are. We're not a destination club. And that's what I think sometimes I lose sight of. And I kind of look at the Gold Coast and the Geelongs and the Sydneys that they get all these players. And I'm like, I really want to be in that position one day. And the good thing is we're not losing players, but we're not exactly bringing talent in that's not through the draft. Or I'm also glad that we haven't done what we've done in the past, which is make the mistake like when we offered Zach Fisher that 5-year deal. Like there's been time Griffin Logue. I mean, there's a lot of we seem to get bang average players, offer them big deals, big money. They come across and they do nothing. So it's I'm glad we didn't fall into that trap, and maybe we have a little bit with Spargo with the 3 years, but I think he's come across with tempered expectations. And I do think you hit the nail on the head, Dean. The part about Charlie Spargo that I really like as a player is his football smarts. And I also think he's actually excited to be a North Melbourne player. The video he put up and some of the interviews he's done on radio is mentioned, obviously his dad's a past player and he's really interested in buying into the program and all these things. And you want players at your club that want to be there. And I feel like he's invested as a North Melbourne person now. That's step one. When you got players that are invested in your program, I think that they can flourish. I think I didn't realize how young he was. So I think with his age, he's got upside. I think that's an important part too. I don't think he's fully reached his potential at 25. So there's part of that too. And I think in his good years at Melbourne, he was crafty and smart. Not necessarily quick, but got into the right positions, could kick a few goals. And I think he'll also be a handy backup player. So if we get, let's hope it doesn't happen, but let's say Paul Curtis, something happens to him, who's probably clearly the best small forward that we've got on the list. You've got a Charlie Spargo that can come up and put pressure on guys as well. So that's what I like about Charlie Spargo. I think he's got smarts that a lot of our players don't necessarily have.
There's quite a few of them, so we don't want to go. We could be talking for the next 3 hours if we talk about players that are too smart at our football club. But we'll have to wait and see how that one part pans out. What would you give this free agency trade period a rating out of 10? What do you think? Rawlings did a good job there, Siobhan?
Dang, he's not really redeeming himself too much to the I'll tell you that much. And look, I don't know. I don't know if it's a matter of not being able to get blood out of a stone just from where we are as a football club, or whether Brady Rawlings is just, as a lot of supporters, myself included, think that he's quite incompetent in many ways as well. Look, I'd probably give it a C-, and that's probably putting it nicely. But the good thing is we held firm on Simpkin and didn't get rolled, which we have in the past for our players. So we didn't lose anybody of note necessarily. And we brought in Charlie Spargo, but his commentary around the key defense really got up my nose. And I also think we potentially could have gone harder for some of the names that I mentioned, like Karmas and May personally, and even someone like Jordan Butts. Those are the names I was surprised we didn't pursue. And obviously Lekalia, I don't know what's happened there, but I think there might be more to that story because he was, like a hanging fruit for us really to take. And obviously we missed out on a few players, so I think we were chasing Jai Sarong pretty hard. And same with Connor Butterick, who chose the Western Bulldogs. I think both of those players would have been handy inclusions for our football club, not life-changing, but probably a step up from a Charlie Spargo and important role players for us. But at the same time, it wasn't a horrible trade period, but quite a sort of trade period, I'd say. So give it a C-. How about you?
Yeah, right down the middle, 5 out of 10 or something like that. C average. He didn't do anything. He didn't. It's strange that he went home early, considering for 356 days a year. How long's trade period? 10 days out of the year. Obviously wanted to get home and beat the traffic. Didn't want to stay till 7:30. Felt like he maybe worked and hard enough over the last 9 days. Well, they have the weekend off too, don't they?
They do.
So,
They do actually.
yeah. So what? 8 days or something there of the year. So yeah, not. I don't know. I found that a bit bizarre. You just decided I'm packing up bags. Yeah. So
I'd love your thoughts quickly, Dina, on Jamarra Ugle-Hagan, though. You think that the club potentially should have done what the Gold Coast did and take a risk on him?
Yeah, well, I was headbutting the wall when I heard he just went for pick 74. I know people will come at me, and people have already said, no, we can't ruin our culture and all this sort of thing. What with what they paid for him, the upside is too big to ignore something like that. I know he probably wants to leave Melbourne because he's obviously been involved with the wrong crowd, but he's not a bad person. I think he's just got himself in the wrong places, and he hasn't dealt with the pressures of AFL football. A lot of people deal with it differently. They try, different things, whether it's meditation or something like that, or getting good support from family and stuff. And he's just struggled with that. And I mean, we can't condemn him. And for pick 74, for a player of his quality, who's got the potential to be a game changer, I would have jumped at that. I would have just said, look, we'll back our culture in to turn it around. We've got good quality, high character people like a Harry Sheezel. Harry Sheezel could work closely with him. Jai Simpkin is close with him. Maybe that could have got Jai Simpkin back on board. And if we got Jamarra Ugle-Hagan, I would have taken a punt on it. Why not? Yeah. What about yourself?
Can see both sides of the coin, but to see him go to the Gold Coast for pick 74 when they've also got Jed Walter, Ben King, Ethan Reid, to name a few.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange place he's gone there out of all the clubs.
Yeah. Look, I'd keep an eye on Jed Walter potentially. I mean, I know the year that he got picked up by the Gold Coast through their academy, we had pick 1 that year, and that stung. And same with Ugle-Hagan. I mean, he was a former pick 1 the year that Will Phillips got drafted. I mean, I know he was a Dogs Academy player, but you never know with Walter now and some of the Gold Coast forwards whether they get a little bit disgruntled and want to move, considering there's going to be a challenge for spots. But look, I don't know whether or not as a football club we were in the right place to take him as a player, but at the same time, we'll see what happens at the Gold Coast, whether it was the right move for them. And then maybe in a year's time or 6 months' time, Dean, we sit back and we go, all right, we dodged a bullet. So I think it's one to play out over the course of time. But ultimately, I mean, when you look at key forwards, I think all clubs really want one. And one of Jamarra Zilka's a previous pick 1. I mean, going for pick 76 only a few years later is crazy, isn't it? And even you look at someone like Clayton or a 3rd round pick to GWS. I mean, it's funny how sometimes players just decrease in value over time, don't they? And don't forget Aiden McCartney. The Swans now have lost 3 first rounders in the chase for Curnow, so they've got less to sort of bid with for McCartney if we come in there. So there are prospects coming up, even though with Tassie in the competition, the pool gets a lot drier and the draft gets a little bit more compromised. But not all hope is lost, I guess, is my message.
No, definitely not. But we'll see how we go. So just one final one. Obviously, the news, this has got nothing to do with trade period. Obviously, the news has come through in the last 24 hours that Taryn Thomas can join an AFL club as a female. How would you feel about that? Like if a club like, I don't know, Essendon sort of said, who are desperate for any sort of talent, like Brad Scott could just say, well, my job's on the line here. He could, change my fortune because I've got nothing else on this list. How do you feel about that, being a female yourself, that he's eligible after all he's done and threatened women with violence, that he's eligible to play AFL again?
Yeah, look, Dana, I don't see any AFL club picking him up.
No, I wouldn't think so.
Guarantee that won't happen. But at the same time, it is a little bit unsatisfying from a fan and point of view on the league, that he's eligible to be drafted again. But I just don't see anyone picking him up, considering how much water's gone under the bridge. But yeah, it's how far can you go really before things are you get stamped out? I guess that's the message there, I guess.
No, it is disappointing. Look, yeah, Hugo Hagen has made a lot of mistakes, but he's nothing of the character of Tarrant Thomas. He's just got himself involved in bad habits that aren't as bad as Tarrant Thomas. I'm not condemning what Hugo Hagen. And there's a lot of reports, and they could be false about Hugo Hagen. He's got himself involved with some wrong people as well. But he's nothing like Tarrant Thomas, like as far as violence against women or threatening violence against women, or anything of that ilk. So yeah, it's obviously disappointing for the game, and from a female's perspective like yourself, it's obviously disappointing for that because it's that's all you can say really. It's they haven't taken it serious enough, and it's they're criminal charges. That's what he said in those text messages. That's criminal. So to just brush that under the rug. It's quite disappointing from the AFL perspective, but I wouldn't expect anything less from them half the time too. So,
No, Dean, exactly. They're an interesting organisation.
the boys' clubs. That's how it is. Unfortunately, anything else to add, Siobhan, before I let you go?
Oh, not necessarily, Dean, but we go again for the trade for the draft period now that the trade period's over. So, look, I think the one thing that I was remiss of me not to mention throughout the pod, and thank you for reminding me, is that I was a little bit surprised that we didn't try and move into the earlier round of the draft, at least sort of higher up in the first round. I understand completely that we didn't have a lot of treasure to trade, so I understand that. But I was surprised there was no talk about any push to try and do some form of deal to try and get higher up in the draft. And obviously, it's been spoken about at length, and we won't bring it up now about the fact that we decided to trade out our first round pick for Whitlock. But it just means that obviously our draft hand is a little bit weaker than we would have hoped for. But let's just hope that we're sensible in the way we attack the draft period, because I think a lot of our supporters, myself included, probably don't want to see any more inside mids get drafted. So we'll see what ends up happening. And there is still a window to try and trade for draft picks and see if we can get ourselves higher up the order. But obviously no movement on that during the trade period.
Well, it's a heavy compromise draft, this one, and
it is, yeah.
And apparently it's one of the weakest drafts they've had in a long time. From all reports anyway, and that's coming from experts.
Yeah, very.
I'd be almost happy to trade out the seconds for if we could trade out 25 and 26, whatever it is, for a future first from even a good club like Brisbane. I'd almost take it, to be honest with you, Siobhan. Just get out of this draft and go into next year's with more equity. We always I felt like we always knew that this was going to happen. Like we were always going to be like a bottom 3-4 club.
Yep.
And they made the decision last year to, trade it. But that pick could have been handy, that first rounder. You might have been able to get a decent player if they wanted to leave. So, it's just one of those things. But it is what it is now, Siobhan.
It is, Dean, exactly. We live and we learn and we move forward.
Yeah, I don't know if Brady Rawlings learns anything. But, well, in Brady, you must trust Siobhan. So, yeah. Anyway, Siobhan, it's been a pleasure having you on tonight. There was a live trade deadline show. I thought there was going to be things happen in that last half an hour. I was getting excited, but I think just before we came on air that all finished up, and Brady Rawlings packed up and went home. Maybe because you were going to go live and he was going to do something stupid. I don't know. Who knows? But thanks so much for coming on tonight, Siobhan. It's been a while, and I'm sure I'll chat to you soon.
Always a pleasure, Dean. And we've also got our girls to cherish, don't we? 21 in a row. So not all hope is lost, but a pretty dull trade period from our perspective. But we move on and we look forward to the draft, which is right around the corner.
No, that's it. So we'll definitely have more shows about the draft coming up, and if any other news comes up as well. So until then, don't forget, like, subscribe, leave a comment. You can jump in the live show, like I think what's his name, James Ping, jumped in for the first time today. So he's left a comment you've left it late, James. So I'm glad you guys did a live show after the cutoff time this year. I vaguely remember you guys did a recording early and something happened last minute. I don't remember. Anyways, no, thanks, James, for coming in. Always good to get new people. Anyways, that's it from me. I'll be back probably either later this week or early next week, going through the AFLW. Until then, bye for now.